All right, hey, this is part 2 of our Mental Health Matters conversation where we're getting to hear from some lovely students who are going to talk about mental health tonight. So super pumped to hear from you guys. Yeah, but just a quick thing, we're going to say a few statements and we're going to raise our hand if we agree, and if you don't agree, you don't have to raise your hand, and then we'll ask you, why don't you agree? But yeah, so let's jump into this. So the first statement is, I believe everyone is affected by mental health. Awesome. Okay, Mia, why do you believe that?
I feel like everybody's mental health is kind of like, it like,
You're good.
sorry, I'm a little nervous. I feel like it really just determines like how you feel throughout the day. Like if your mental health's like bad, then it will lead to a bad thing. Or if your mental health's good, then it'll lead to a good thing. Not that that like always determines it, but it plays a big factor. And I think that mental health is good and bad, so it just plays a role in like how you do things and
Yeah, for sure. Yes, absolutely. Michael, what about you?
Yes, I agree completely. It's like, so you have mental health, there, no matter what, there's always a positive, there's a negative, and there's only 2 ways you can live your life, really. So no matter what, mental health is always affected throughout your life, either good or bad, and really it's just, you determine it through God and all your prayers and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like even with this question, maybe a better way to ask it is like, I believe everyone struggles with mental health, because absolutely everyone's affected by mental health. That's an easy thing to agree with, but I think like, at least I believe everyone struggles with their mental health. Would you? Yeah. I don't know, with that, would you say anything else with that kind of mindset of it?
I think that everybody's struggle is different. Like some people have, like, I feel like when we think of struggle, it means something different for everybody else. Like something that's hard to you can be like easy to somebody else. And I think that mental health, it takes a toll on everybody differently.
Yeah.
So I think for some people, that can make it hard to connect like with others, like the communication and stuff, because everybody sees things differently, and like with their mental health, like everybody's mental health is different too. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so our second statement of today is, I believe it's easy to express my feelings. Who would say that is true? Yeah, okay, so mixed reviews. Okay, cool. Let's throw it over to Michael. What would you say about this?
So I would say it's not easy to express my feelings at all. I've always been struggling with this for a while now, and so I don't like to open up to people. It's like very vulnerable to myself. Because I'm known to be like a pretty like stand-up guy, and just whatever happens, just go with the flow, and I just don't like being vulnerable and like letting people like in like that deep, because I don't know, maybe they won't like it, maybe they will. I don't really know, to be honest. It just is what it is.
For sure. Well, thanks for being real about that, because I feel like, yeah, especially when it comes to guys, I feel like it is so much more difficult for us to just be open about things. I feel like for girls, like you meet with girls and like they're just more open about like their life, whereas I'll meet with a guy and it's like very short. And so, you know, the way that even God's wired us, it seems like, I find it as well maybe more difficult, so much so to the point where constantly Pastor Caroline's saying to me, could you just feel this for a second? Like, can you just express what you're feeling? Because for me, even the way that I was brought up, it wasn't as apparent to see that in my parents. So how about you, Ellie? What would you say for this?
I think it's easy to express my mental health, especially to the person I'm talking to regarding it. I think God puts people in our life for a reason, especially people who we need to go to express our mental health. So I think I have really good outlets in my life. And I hope a lot of those other people do in the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Would you mind sharing maybe who are some of those people within your life that you feel comfortable with?
Definitely my parents and my siblings the most. They obviously known me for such a long time, and I just feel like I can totally let everything down and let everything onto them, and they're going to be so accepting. And so, yeah.
So good. That's awesome. All right, the third statement is, I believe we talk enough at school about mental health. Who would agree?
Nothing's changed.
Nobody. Okay, let's talk about that. Mara,
Yeah, I don't really think we do. I mean, like, you'll maybe have like an assembly or something, someone come in to talk about mental health,
Right.
but
like one time.
yeah, like one time, one person will come in
It's
and
like
it's
you're
like,
healed.
yeah, they'll have
So
that.
true.
Yeah.
And then it's like, they're like, oh, you can always, come in, get help, talk
For
to
sure.
someone, but it's like, if someone sees you walk over there to like that door or something, they're like, oh, like, you're hurting. Like, I think it's like, people judge you a lot if you
Absolutely.
do talk about it in school. So.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, for real. And this is not a diss or anything, but I was like, I don't know, we were talking to a few students about their guidance counselors and how like almost like unapproachable. It's nothing to do with the guidance counselors, it's more
Right.
about like the stigma of like
For sure.
going to a guidance counselor,
Yeah.
at your school. Would you guys like agree with that? For sure, yeah. All right, Ellie, what do you think about it?
I think there is a huge stigma around mental health in schools and just people not being able to express or talk about it. I think a lot of people see it as a weakness
Mm.
and it's something to joke about when that is not the case and everyone
sure.
goes through it. And so I think the more we talk about it, the more we reduce that stigma.
Yeah, so true. And I feel like the crazy part is I think we all went to public school, right? And so it's crazy that like your public schools are the larger school, and the fact that it's not being addressed within our classes, I feel like it needs to be. We learn all these different things throughout classes, but if I'm not doing well, maybe we can do a better job. Even how long the days are, you guys gotta get up early, you've got all this homework in class, you have practice, the overwhelmment of like all the things you guys have to do, work a job at your age and things like that, study for your license, all the things,
It's like, so where are you going to college?
For sure, right.
And your career, do you have that figured out?
For sure, yeah.
Like, I just want to go
So
to bed at a
true.
decent hour.
Yeah. All right, well, statement number 4 is this. I have struggled with my mental health this past week. If we're all being honest in here, who would say that they have this past week? Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll throw it over to Mia.
I would say that in this past week, it's been, I feel like more school related. I think school like plays a lot into my stress
For sure.
because it's like grades, like I'm going to be a senior, I gotta figure out like, what I want to do, things like that. Like just trying to end off the year on a high note, and that kind of like ties into like me being overwhelmed and like I'm stressing out about the math, and then I'm wondering like why my hair color is brown. Like just little things like that. Like it's kind of like a domino effect. I
For
feel like.
sure, yeah.
And I think I personally easily get like overwhelmed by little things. So yeah, but I also would just take the time to refocus. I'm like, girl, what are you stressing? Like it's just school. Like
For sure.
and I just have to take a deep breath and just, refocus on the good stuff.
Yeah. How do you like practically, even this past week that you struggled, or even like a time before, how do you practically, like almost address like what's going on in your mental health, and like how do you move through that with like through your relationship with Jesus?
I think it's not like something, I don't know, I wouldn't say I would just have like one method because it's something I've been working on for like a long time. But as of lately, I would just be like, okay, like sometimes I just have to take a step back from what I'm doing. And I think that's kind of hard because us as teenagers, are always like on the go pressuring ourselves. But sometimes you just have to take a step back and I gotta breathe. And I'm like, okay. And then I just analyze like what's going on. Like, I'm going through this, or I'm feeling like this, and then I'll like, if it's something I feel like I can bring my faith into, which it normally is, so I'll just like look at a verse that makes me feel good, or like remind myself that this is happening for a reason, and that it's just, what am I trying to say? it's not something as major as I'm trying to make it seem, and this is something I can overcome. I just have to take a deep breath and regroup.
Yeah.
And then I'll play a worship song.
Yes. And I think like what you also do really well is you like just from knowing you and getting to like talk with you through just a lot of things like is you also use a creative outlet that God's given you. He's gifted you in this gift of poetry. And not to like expose you, but you're
Put me out there.
but you're so gifted at expressing like what you're going through poetry, and I think like it doesn't have to be poetry for everyone else. Like
Poetry is also a wide genre too. Like it's not like William Shakespeare. Like, it can just be like small words, like
For
what you're
sure.
feeling. It's easier to like write it down because then that's like what you all.
no,
Everything, but like I feel like writing too. I'm glad you brought that up anyway. But I think writing is really good, and I would like recommend it for a lot of people because when you write something down, you don't have to say it out loud. And I feel like if you're not really good at expressing yourself with other people, it's easier to just write it down because nobody's gonna look at it but you. So it's just easier because then you don't have to look back on it, but you can if you want to. That's why I like in the notes app, getting the notes app.
For sure.
Yes, I love that you just said that. Last thing I'll say about this, like, I love that you said, like, you can look back at it if you want to, but you also, like, you can just write things down just to express it and be like, okay, well, now that it's out of my brain, I don't have to deal with that anymore, you know? And not as, like, that's such a beautiful way. It's almost like you're writing down your prayers to God, like, God, this is what I'm going through, and you don't even have to address it to him because like he's reading it anyways, you know?
So
But I love that, like you can look back at it in a different season to remember like what God brought you through, or you can just, you know, write it down and literally delete it after just because that was an expression of, you know, what you're going through. So I love that, man. It's awesome.
One thing I remember in the middle, we talked about breath prayers. And you talked about just being able to breathe. And one practical activity that I heard through our middle school curriculum was just all you have to do is breathe in whatever it is that you're stressed about. So like school, and then you breathe out. And what you say is, God, I give it to you. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate like just prayers. But oftentimes, like what you're saying, you talked about prayer, you talked about, you know, just breathing. Like, could we all just for a second breathe in whatever it is that we're stressed about? Breathe out. And then everybody say, God, I give it to you.
God, I give it to you.
Awesome. That's something very practical that we can actually do throughout our day. I need to remind myself of that as well.
Yeah, well, let's move to our last statement, and that is, I believe God cares about my mental health. All right, Mara, what do you think about that statement?
I definitely believe that God cares about your mental health. I mean, there's so much in the Bible.
For sure.
Just talks about like, you know, like cast everything like onto Him, you know. Yeah, He just always cares. I mean, there's a song that I love to listen to. It's like the title's like "Lay It All Down." It's just something really like I love listening to it because it's literally lay everything down. Like He definitely cares about you. And God sent His only Son to die on the cross. And if He cared that much to send His Son, then He definitely cares about your mental health.
For sure. I love that she named a song. You know my favorite go-to. It's called "I Get Overwhelmed Sometimes."
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's my favorite. I just need that. I get overwhelmed sometimes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, literally. I'm like in the bathroom, like in the corner, like sometimes. No, for real, that's never happened. Just kidding. No, yeah, that's good. Mia, you got anything about this one?
I would say I think God definitely cares about your mental health, but I also think that it's a bigger picture. Like I feel like us as Christians, we don't really look at the story. I think that I just came to this realization recently, but I think that God wants us to have a story. I feel like us being Christians, we have to be able to go through like all the hurt and the pain and the struggle to be able to come on top and say that this is what I've overcome through Christ. And I think that God caring about us, now we may not see it or we may not feel it because we're hurt or we're going through like negative things, but when we overcome it, then you're just like, wow, you know, and like that's happened to me, like myself, like I'll be going through something and then I just overcome it and I'm like, wow, glory to God. Like,
Yeah, for
I was
sure.
like, you really stopped me through it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that that's something that should be more normalized. Like
Mm.
we go through things, but we go through things just to overcome it. And I think that is God caring about our mental health.
Yeah.
To like make a story that we can share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I love that you just said that so much because I think sometimes, you know, new Christians think like, oh, I just got saved, like my life is about to be sunshine and rainbows. And it's like, nah, like you're probably about to walk through a really like hard season. You might not, it might be a year or something, but like you saying that, I love that so much. Like it's not sunshine and rainbows, but the difference between, you know, knowing Jesus and not knowing him is that like you live with this continuous hope that like there is good to come out of this rather than like I cannot imagine going through mental health struggles without the hope and the peace of Jesus.
Yeah.
Knowing that like he is literally available at all times. He's the Prince of Peace. You basically just summarized this verse and have it right here, but I like it in the Message version a little bit better, so I'm just going to read it. But it's Romans 5:3-5, and it says, "There's more to come. We continue to shout our praise even when we're hemmed in with troubles, because we know how troubles can develop passionate patience in us, and how that patience in turn forges the tempered steel of virtue, keeping us alert for whatever God will do next. We're never left feeling shortchanged. Quite the contrary. We can't round up enough containers to hold everything God generously pours into our lives through the Holy Spirit." And in other translations, it just says that like we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. And perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And I mean, that should give us some hope that like no matter what we're going through, we're either like producing perseverance, we're either producing character or we're producing hope, you know? And so, we don't just go through things sometimes just for the benefit of ourselves and our own relationship with God, but to bring others like hope in their seasons when they share that with us. So
For sure.
I love that verse a lot.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. All right, so last thing we thought would be really cool for you guys, I'd love to hear from everyone, but how would you encourage somebody that might be struggling with their mental health? Maybe what's something that has helped gotten you through whatever season of life that it is. Maybe a verse comes to mind, or maybe just even an encouragement. But how would you guys encourage maybe the ones that are watching here with us today? Who wants to jump in?
I can. There's this quote that comes to mind that I learned. It's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a quote that I learned when I was kind of going through my own struggles.
For sure.
And it's just so inspiring because it truly is okay to not be okay and to be able to find an outlet in God and your family and somebody out there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think.
That's so good. I'm so glad you said that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one thing to encourage others is like just pray to God. Really, I may not be able to open up to other people, but I can talk about God about anything. Mm-hmm. I do all my prayer in the morning, going to work, going to school, putting on worship music. It just lets me relax, and I can just talk to Him.
That's awesome. I love that. Leah or Mira?
I would say have faith. I think that a lot of times, or at least for me, when I was younger, I was like really hesitant on being in my faith because people around me, they weren't like really religious or anything. But I found out myself that there's no shame in being a Christian. I mean, I can't express that enough. Like, and through faith, you just have to, like, it's like a constant thing. Like, it's like having hope, I would say, in a way. And faith, I can't remember that quote. What is this? Like, faith is by sight or not by sight. Yeah, and it's like, to have faith, you really just have to believe it, I feel like, in your spirit that that's something that you want. And I think that with having faith, you're able to overcome things because through your spiritual journey, you'll meet people and you'll go through experiences by yourself or with people. And there's so many opportunities that can be given to you if you just have faith. And there's so much hope in Jesus, I feel like. And yeah, I would also say get into community because being a Christian, it's really difficult, and I think not a lot of people express how like challenging it can be, especially like through the hard times and things like that. So having people around you that you can like talk to with things like that, it makes it worthwhile.
How I would encourage other people, I think a lot of us, we care about what other people think of us.
For sure.
And so what I like to think to help myself is like God like literally holding my hand going into something like sports or school. I mean, it really just puts me at peace. A lot of us like are so focused on ourselves. It's instead of thinking, oh, what are they thinking? They're probably more focused on their self than they are to anyone else. So just really think God is right next to you, and it really does give you peace for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. That's actually so cool. I'll remember that.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Well, thanks guys for just being vulnerable
For
and
sure.
like
Thanks for
just sharing your hearts with all of our students. Like that's, I think that so many students are going to be encouraged by
Yeah.
your testimony, your words, and just your encouragement. So thank you so much for just opening up and being willing to do this. We love you guys.